Shalom, this is Sophia, chief of the AmaruKhan Band of Indians, spiritual healer, philosopher, researcher, and dedicated mother. This is an extended version of my Genevieve, France crop circle decode. This turns out to really be the real first crop circle of 2024. This one was found on June the 8th. In France. Now, as I mentioned in the other video, which I'm not going to repeat everything and go over everything. This is the research part of it. So you'll have to watch the other video for the pictures and all of that stuff. We're gonna go into the research in this video. So, right. So as I mentioned, this crop circle happened in. Oh, as I mentioned in the other video, I'm sorry. The crop circles we normally see, the ones that are covered the most, are the ones that happen in Britain, in Great Britain, in a specific area known as the Chalk Hills. And this is where they have all the chalk horses and stuff, these Neolithic monuments that they can't explain. So this is where most of these circles actually are taken seriously. Now, this particular one, as you can see, this guy, I don't know who he is, Red Collie, he believes that it is a real crop circle based on, in this other tweet, he had some pictures of him on the ground. He was actually, you could see by the way that the actual crop was on the ground, pressed into the ground, that it was not something that could be man-made. It was in the typical crisscross pattern. And so this is, what we would consider a real crop circle. Now, none of these other, crop circle people covered it, again, because it was in France, it wasn't in Britain, and I guess they don't have access to get into France, or whatever the case may be. I don't know what it is. So anyway, this one happened on, as I mentioned, June the 8th. So around June the 8th is when I started tweeting, like, okay, hey, where the crop circles at, man? You guys are running late. And so it could be that they just couldn't get one into the proper area. Let me take a look. I want to know when those snap elections were called. Okay, so according to the New York Times, whatever, France had a surprise call for new elections. Is this gonna make me pay? No. Okay, so Macron threw French politics into disarray on Sunday. So this would have been on the 9th, right? This was written on the 10th. So I'm looking at two different calendars. He called for the snap election on the 9th. The crop circle showed up on Saturday. That's no coincidence. Okay? France now finds itself in unpredictable territory, with the future of Mr. Macron's second term potentially at stake. With less than a month to go before the poll, parties are now scrambling to field candidates, hone their messaging, and in some cases forge alliances. So what happened? France's far right, anti-immigrant National Rally Party, led by Marine Le Pen, who is not far right or anti-immigrant, to be honest, and her widely popular protege Jordan Bardella, surged to first place in elections for the European Parliament on Sunday with 31% of the vote. The centrist coalition led by Mr. Macron's Renaissance Party came in a distant second with about 14%. So what happened was Macron's allies won in the EU, in the Parliament, because the way that imagine, it's kind of like how we have state politics and then we have national politics. The EU is the national arm of the little quote-unquote states, which the countries over there are basically as small as states. I don't think any of those countries are as large as even Texas. So we're talking about very small areas. So they have local governments, like we have local governments, but then they have the EU, which is the larger government. And with a quote unquote far right person like Marine Le Pen winning that, she wields a lot of power to come into France and basically tell Macron what he will and will not do. This is where the problem is. Now, again, Marine Le Pen is not really reliable because I follow her a lot in the 2020 when she was running, and she kind of like waffles on both sides. She's not like a reliable quote unquote far right person like they say that she is. She's honestly not. And so, however, she's not in Macron's cohort of individuals in the way that they wish to see Europe governed. So with Marine Le Pen winning, this makes a huge political issue. So we have Genevieve invoked. I just wonder when this when was this election? I'm not paying. Just tell me what day it was. It won't. It literally won't. All right, let me go back. Here we go. Let's see. So this is the first time this dissolving of the National Assembly has been done since 1997. Right? So it says essentially the end of the 5-year term, which was scheduled for 2027, has been advanced to 2024. And if you guys have been looking at neutrino astrology, he integrates human design into his astrology, or astrology into his human design. He has been saying that the end of this era that we're in is literally in 2027, and a new era, uncharted era will start. And so, yeah, it's, yeah. Okay. It says only the president can dissolve the assembly national. At least 1 year must have elapsed between previous parliamentary elections. The president must consult the prime minister. Early parliamentary elections are held in the same format as conventional parliamentary elections, with a 2-round majority vote, in each constituency. They did this in 1962, 1968, 1981, and in 1987. They did it in 1988, and then 1997 was the last time. Okay. By calling parliamentary elections in 2024, 3 years ahead of the next presidential election, Macron is putting the legislative term out of sync with the presidential term. Since the switch to a 5-year presidential term in 2002, parliamentary elections have consistently taken place right after presidential elections. Each parliamentary election has produced a majority from the same political side as the recently elected president. There have been no cohabitation since the alignment of these electoral calendars. The two elections could realign again if the next president in 2027 decides to dissolve the assembly at their arrival. So basically, Macron, his job is safe, right? But he's trying to figure out. Look, it says this for several months. I'm sorry, we're going into this, but it seemed really important, and I didn't go over it too much in the other thing. For several months, a small group of confidants worked discreetly at the Élysée Palace on a high-risk scenario, the dissolving of the Assemblée Nationale. Among those in the know were former advisors to the President Macron, aides from his first presidential campaign, who later left to work in private sector before returning to Macron's side, such as a special advisor, Jonathan Gourmaz. Also involved were Macron's chief of staff, Alexis Kohler, and Interior Minister Gerald Darmanin. Okay, I can't read the rest of the article. So this is not a typical thing. They really don't want us to have this information, and I don't care, because I'm not about to pay these people for something I could hypothetically Google. Let me see what CNN says. This is why I hate using CNN, because all these people, because they don't want people to actually know what's going on. They want you to pay. The unprecedented defeat for the current government marks the end of a cycle and day one of a post-Macron era. Wow. The far-right National Rally RN party came out top with 31% of the vote, more than double the share of his party. Now remember, Macron's grandma wife is like 50 years older than him. She's like the same age as Joe Biden. And Macron is like the age of Hunter Biden. Younger. Younger. Okay? So Le Pen says we are ready to take the power if the French palate place their trust in us. She's the leader of the RN party. We're ready to rebuild the country, to defend the interests of the French, ready to put an end to mass immigration, ready to make the purchasing power of the French a priority, ready to begin reindustrialization of the country. Since beginning his second term in 2022, Macron has been ruling with a relative majority, forcing him to invoke Article 49.3 of the French Constitution several times, pushing legislation through Parliament without a vote, to the increasing displeasure of the opposition lawmakers and much of the French public. The last time they did this was 97. Told CNN the predicted results show that there's a Republican majority in France of those who don't agree with the far-right ideas. We should never be afraid of the French people, the source said. Convince, convince, convince. That's the spirit that the presidential majority will take up. So they think that they can convince the people. And if you just go and look and see what's happening in France, now mind you, the election, the the Olympics is in a few weeks, maybe a week, when the Olympics starts. I saw a video on TikTok that said what did she say? The people who made the medals are on strike. Just anticipate all of the people going on strike. They kicked people out of their housing, their college dormitory housing, to house the athletes. So, and then they were asking these same people who they kicked out of their housing that they're going to use to house the athletes to actually come and work to help the Olympics be done. As many hotels as they thought to be filled was not filled. The big pool or whatever that they built is leaking. I think they were planning on doing some of the events like in the actual river there, and the river is dirty. Like, nobody should be swimming in that river. So it's a lot of actual problems going on for this Olympics, and that's why it's kind of like, this is not really the time to be calling an election in the middle of the whole world is going to be looking at you. And everyone already knows about the huge bed bug problem in France. So this is actually going to be miserable for all those who participate, okay? So let me go over this. Sorry that I needed to get that in there because I didn't mention it in the other video, but I knew it was around the same time. So again, you have this crop circle, and then right after this crop circle, you have the election where Marine Le Pen and her group won 30% of the vote, which is a plurality to them. It's a lot. And then you have this crop circle where Saint Genevieve is invoked, and then meaning the people called her in to assist, and her sigil appears, and she then Macron dissolves the government basically the next day. And so it's there's no other way to see that this is definitely a crying out from the people of France to try to save their country, because it's really in a lot of trouble, honestly. So let's talk about Saint Genevieve. I'm not going to read this short description because I have it pulled up, and we're going to go through her background because it's really unbelievable. Really unbelievable. Okay, so she was a consecrated virgin, the patron saint of Paris, and in the Catholic and Orthodox traditions, her feast day is on January 3rd. Now, if you remember, was it January 3rd or January 4th that Cat Williams? Let me just look it up. No, let me see what day that was. This was 5 minutes ago. Hold on, let's see. What day was this? Her feast day was on January 3rd. Cat Williams' interview with Shannon Sharps came out on January 3rd. So, again, you can't make this stuff up. Like, I wish I could make this up. I knew it. I knew it. So, this is the same day. These things happened the same day, okay? As her feast day. So, we know she has been integral in this whole process because I didn't even think to look up who the patron saint of that conversation was, but as you can see, she has made herself known. Okay. Recognized for her religious devotion at a young age, she met Germanus of Auxerre and Lupus of Troyes when she was a child and dedicated herself to a virginal life. Miracles and healings began to happen around her. Early on, she became known for changing the weather. She moved from Nanterre, her hometown, to Paris after her parents died and became known for her piety, healings, miracles. Although the residents of Paris resented her and would have killed her if not for Germanus' interventions, her prayers saved Paris from being destroyed by the Huns under Attila in 451 and other wars. Her organization of the city's women was called a prayer marathon, and Genevieve's most famous feat. She was involved in two major construction projects in Paris, a basilica in honor of Saint Denis of Paris in 475, and the Basilica of the Holy Apostles, dedicated to St. Peter and Paul, in 500. Genevieve performed miracles both before and after her death. She was recognized as a patron saint of Paris in the 14th century. She was a favorite of both the humblest residents and of the Bourbon family, and was eventually venerated by Erasmus and the revolutionary fishwives, and was considered a cultural symbol which Parisians shared, appropriated, negotiated, and used according to specific communal assumptions and traditions. Genevieve, I don't call her Genevieve, like Genevieve, was publicly invoked during emergencies and related to the needs and expectations of the residents of Paris 153 times between 885 and 1791, ranging from spontaneous and less ritualized invocations and processions with her reliquary during the Middle Ages to highly ritualized ones before her unveiled reliquary in the years leading to the French Revolution. As times and conditions changed in Paris, so did the ways Genevieve was invoked and processed. As new calamities threatened the city and new intercessions were needed, new associations, images, and metaphors were required. Her cult remained popular throughout the history of Paris, although her cult has never returned to its pre-revolutionary popularity and unifying status. Let's look again. 1735. So yeah, because she moved over here. So it says 1791. So yeah, about soon after that, she came over here. Her energy was moved over here. Of course, when they build a church, they take the relics, and so they must have a relic of her in that church in Missouri. Okay, because we're going to talk about the American connection in a minute. Okay. Genevieve was born in 419 or 422 in Nanterre, France, a small village almost 7 kilometers west of Paris, to Severus and Gerontia, who were of German or Frankish origins. A candle is one of her most common attributes. Sometimes she is depicted with the devil, who is said to have blown out her candle when she prayed at night. Genevieve appears in the Martyrology of Jerome. Her Vita appeared many centuries after her death, although hagiographer Donald Atwater states that her Vita claims to be written by a contemporary of Genevieve, and its authenticity and value are the subject of much discussion. According to historian Moshe Shklovsky, the Vita of Saint Genevieve was written shortly after her death in the late 500s and was based upon the Vita of Martin of Tours. In 1310, the French edition of her Vita was published. In 1367, the French translation was published. As David Farmer states, little can be known about her with certainty, but her cult has flourished on civil and national pride. Even though so after this election was held, then her sigil emerged. Oh, we're going to talk about her sigil next. Okay. Even though popular tradition represents Genevieve's parents as poor peasants, their names, which are common amongst the Gallo-Roman aristocracy, are considered evidence that she was born into the Gaelic upper class. She was recognized for her religious devotion from an early age. When Genevieve was 7 years old, Germanus of Auxerre and Lupus of Troyes stopped at Nanterre on their way from Britain to Gaul to put an end to the Pelagian heresy. Germanus saw Genevieve in a crowd of villagers who gathered to meet and obtain Germanus and Lupus' blessing, and observed her thoughtfulness and piety. After speaking to her and encouraging her to preserve the path of virtue, Germanus interviewed her parents and told them that she would be great before the face of the Lord, and that by her example lead and teach many consecrated virgins. As Shklovsky states, miracles marking the young girl as bride of Christ followed. Genevieve told Germanus that she wanted to follow God. According to her Vita, Germanus confirmed her desire to become a consecrated virgin, plucked a coin from the ground, and instructed her to have a necklace made from it to remind her about their meeting. A coin from the ground. Well, listen to this. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, Germanus gave Genevieve a medal engraved with a cross and instructed her to wear it instead of pearls or gold jewelry to help her remember her commitment to Christ. The Catholic Encyclopedia also states that since there were no convents near Navarre, she remained at home leading an innocent, prayerful life. According to historian Joanne McNamara, Germanus inspired Genevieve to dedicate her life and virginity to God's service, which was not limited to an established rule or monastic lifestyle. So she didn't go into a monastery. It is unknown when Genevieve received the consecration of virgins. Some sources say that she received her veil from Pope Gregory I, while others say that she, along with two companions, received them from the Bishop of Paris when she was 15 years old. Shklovsky states that Genevieve was consecrated in 437. Genevieve's Vita relates to a story about her mother being struck blind after violently preventing Genevieve from attending church on a feast day. After almost 2 years, Genevieve realized that she was the reason for her mother's blindness. After her mother asked her to retrieve water from a nearby well, she restored her mother's sight with it. According to Shklovsky, the miracle confirmed Genevieve's sanctity, and her family later allowed her to be brought with two girls before a bishop to be consecrated as virgins. The bishop blessed her before the other girls, even though she was the youngest. Shklovsky calls her mother's healing the first water-related miracle associated with Genevieve, who was invoked to protect Paris from floods centuries after her death. The Navarre well was a popular site of veneration well into the 15th century. By the 16th century, many miracles occurred at the site, and it was one of the major pilgrimage sites in the Ile-de-France. In the 1700s, an annual pilgrimage to Navarre was celebrated the first Sunday after Easter, and many of the well's visitors were members of the French royal family. For example, Anne of Austria had a special devotion to Genevieve and would make yearly pilgrimages on January 3rd, Genevieve's feast day, to the well in Navarre and to pray for the birth of a male heir. After Anne's son was born, she visited Navarre to thank Genevieve, and in 1642 donated the cornerstone for a new seminary there. According to Shklovsky, other fountains and springs were associated with Genevieve. were attributed with healing powers, including high fevers, into the early modern period. In 1599, Swiss physician and writer Thomas Platter recorded a possibly earlier water miracle. When Genevieve was still in school, a bridge appeared over a ditch filled with water, then disappeared after she crossed over it. Platter argued that this miracle was the reason residents of Paris ascribed Genevieve with the power to change the weather. Later life and death. After her parents' death, Genevieve went to live with her godmother in Paris, devoting herself to prayer and charitable works. She became severely paralyzed and almost died. After she recovered, she reported that she had seen visions of heaven. In Paris, she became admired for her piety and devotion to works of charity and practiced fasting, severe corporal austerities, and the mortification of flesh, which included abstaining from meat and breaking her fast only twice a week. She fasted between the ages of 15 to 50, from Sunday to Thursday and from Thursday to Sunday. Her diet consisted of beans and barley bread, and she never drank alcohol. After she turned 50, and by order of her bishop, she added fish and milk to her diet. She devoutly kept vigil each Saturday night, following the teaching of the Lord concerning the servant who awaited the master's return from a wedding. The virgins. Okay. Genevieve's neighbors, filled with jealousy and envy, accused her in 445 or 446 of being a hypocrite and impostor, and that her visions of prophecies were frauds. Slavoski states that Genevieve received the divine gift of reading people's thoughts, which displeased many residents of Paris. Slavoski also states that opposition to her occurred because she threatened the male hierarchy in Paris. So she needed patronage and recognition from established male authorities, which she received from Germanus, Simon Stylite, and Clovis I. Her enemies plotted to drown her, but Germanus visited Paris again and defended her, although attacks continued. The Bishop of Paris appointed her to care for other consecrated virgins. By her instructions and example, she led them to a high degree of sanctity. Shortly before the Huns' 451 attack of Paris, Genevieve prophesied that the city would be spared, but those who fled Paris would be killed. Genevieve and Germanus Archdeacon persuaded the people of Paris that she was not a prophetess of doom, and convinced the women that instead of joining their husbands and abandoning their homes, to pray and do acts of penance to spare the city. It is claimed that the intercession of Genevieve's prayers caused Attila's army to go to Orleans instead. That's amazing. According to her Vita, Genevieve persuaded the women of Paris to undertake a series of fasts, prayers, and vigils in order to ward off threatening disaster, as Esther and Judith had done in the past. Come on now, Esther and Judith, y'all know that's us right there. That's our 22-day fast. No, not the 22-day fast. I'm sorry. We had an Esther and Judith fast. Hold on, where's my card? I made a card for it. I'm trying to remember. It was long. No, that was last year in August. That was our August fast. Well, we started it a little bit before August. I think it was like June 29th or something like. I think I started on July the 26th. That was right around the days out of time for that Mayan calendar. So we're barking up the right tree. Okay? McNamara, who translated Genevieve's Vita, calls it a prayer marathon and Genevieve's most famous feat. Genevieve also persuaded the men not to remove their goods from Paris. The city's residents were again angered by her prophecies, and Slavoski put it, the possibility by her disruption of gender hierarchies. They again plotted to kill her, but she was saved by Germanus' intervention. A messenger was sent to bring her Eucharistic loaf shortly after his death, which prevented the residents from carrying out their plan against her. Oh my goodness. Years later, Genevieve distinguished herself by her charity and self-sacrifice during the defeat of Paris by Merowig in 480, and was able to influence him and his successors, Childeric and Clovis I, to be lenient towards the city residents. According to Farmer, Genevieve made an agreement with the soldiers during the siege to Paris to obtain provisions, which were transported by river from Arces to Troyes. Her Vita reports that Clovis, who venerated her, often pardoned criminals he had put in prison at Genevieve's request, even if they were guilty. Atwater states that Genevieve asked Clovis to free prisoners and be lenient to lawbreakers. According to Farmer, she won Childeric's respect. He ordered Paris gates closed so that Genevieve could not rescue prisoners he wanted to execute. But after Genevieve was informed of his plans, she opened the gates by touching them without a key. She met with Childeric and persuaded him not to execute the prisoners. She led a convoy, proved herself capable of leading a paramilitary operation which necessitated crossing enemy lines, through the blockade of Paris up the Seine from Troyes to bring food to the starving citizens. On her return home, Genevieve's prayers saved 11 ships that carried her, her companions, and the grain for the residents of Paris. Back in Paris, she gave food to the poor first. Genevieve was also involved in 2 major construction projects in Paris. She had a strong devotion to Saint Denis of Paris, the city's first bishop, and wanted to build a basilica in his honor in 475. Even though the local priests had few resources, she told them to go to the bridge of Paris, where they found an abandoned lime kiln which provided the building materials for the basilica. After praying all night, one of the priests promised to raise the funds needed to hire workers, and the carpenters donated their time to gather wood and other resources. When the workers ran out of water to drink, Genevieve prayed and made the sign of the cross over a vessel, and water was miraculously provided. The basilica was later called the Priory of Saint Denis de Strata. Genevieve collaborated with Clotilde, the wife of Clovis I, to bring about his conversion to Christianity. Shortly before her death, Genevieve convinced him to build the Basilica of the Holy Apostles, dedicated to St. Peter and St. Paul, which was completed after the year 500. After Genevieve's death, in recognition of her part in Clovis' conversion, Clotilde was able to honor her grave. Genevieve's Vita states that she passed over in ripe old age, full of virtue, and she died around the age of 82. After her death, she was enshrined at the Basilica of the Holy Apostles, which she helped build. She was buried next to members of Clovis' family and was considered a protector of the royal family. Miracles started occurring at the Basilica immediately following her internment there. Her Vita records the earliest ones. Her entombment at the Basilica helped Genevieve gain prestige. Soon after her death, her tomb became a pilgrimage site. Genevieve's Vita states about the basilica: a triple portico adjoins the church with pictures of the patriarchs and prophets, martyrs and confessors to the faith in ancient times from the pages of history books. Healings took place at her shrine. After Genevieve's death, oil that was kept in the Abbey of St. Genevieve, which was built in early 6th century, was reported to heal blindness as late as the 9th century. Additional miracles experienced by pilgrims to her shrine were recorded in the 14th century. Similar to the miracles that occurred during Genevieve's lifetime, there were reports of miracles such as the healing of eye disease, paralysis, the plague, and high fever. Let's look at her miracles. This is unbelievable. According to McNamara, during the Franks' many sieges of Paris, Genevieve had to convince them that she and her God were allies worth having. McNamara also states that Genevieve aligned with the poor and conquered against the unharnessed secular power. McNamara believes, however, that her status as a woman with no official status or political power rendered her innocuous in the context of secular power, and reports that Genevieve inspired the Franks to respect the Gallic saints and provide evidence to the rulers on both sides that God responded to her prayers. McNamara goes on to state power, as expressed through miracles, protected Childeric and his successors from the possibility that whatever mercy and indulgence they showed towards the saints and to the poor championed might be construed as a sign of weakness unbecoming of a warrior. So what they're saying is that because they showed mercy and indulgence to the saints and the poor as a result of a miracle that was done it protected their reputation, meaning they weren't seen as weak leaders as a result of, okay, somebody did this miracle and I mean, what are you going to do? Interfere with God? So as a result, they weren't seen as just weak warriors. It was just like, hey, we're not going to interfere with God. Got it. Okay. Hope that makes sense. Sophia states that miraculous, and please forgive me for butchering these names, because I ain't too good with this. I took French in high school, but Slovatsky is a Russian name, from what I understand. Okay, Slovatsky states that miracle healings, which included restoring sight to the blind, healing women of paralysis, expelling demons from possessed, occurred both during Genevieve's lifetime and after her death. Listen to this. According to the Catholic Encyclopedia, Genevieve had frequent visions of heavenly saints and angels. She also performed miracles in Paris through the Isle de France, which included exorcising demons, healing the blind, resurrecting the dead, rescuing prisoners, and helping consecrated virgins escape her fiancé. Genevieve's Vita reports that she rekindled a candle after it went out on the way from her cell to the Basilica of Saint Denis. The virgins with her were frightened, so she asked to hold the candle and immediately lit up again. She arrived at the basilica. The candle was consumed by its own fire after completing her prayers. Another candle was lit when she touched it, and people were healed when they procured fragments of the candle. So what they're saying is, the candle went out, she touched it, the candle came on. People took pieces of the candle after it had burnt out and used it to perform miracles. That's how much holiness was inside of these candles. Okay. Later stories about this event report that a demon was trying to extinguish the candle and that an angel protected her. According to Slovatsky, residents of Paris were familiar with this story because an angel looking over her shoulder and a demon looking over her left shoulder were featured with her in the most common iconographic representations of Genevieve, including in several late medieval and early modern drawings, miniatures, and engravings. The image also appeared in the earliest surviving statues and miniatures of her, including her statue in the Louvre, created in the 13th century, and a miniature at her abbey. So I think I remember talking about this whole good angel. Oh, with Abraham, that's what it was. He had a Yael on one side and Azazel was on the other side. So this is what this is again. So, okay. So you have at the beginning of the year, on her feast day, Cat Williams does this interview with Shannon Sharp, rips the veil from opens up, just rips the veil of people's eyes. A video that has millions of views, right? And everyone is presented with the good angel and the bad angel, or Yael and Azazel. And we were prepared for that because all the way back in... No, wait a minute. When did I do that video about Yael? Hold on, let me look. Let's have a look. Because I revisited it again not that long ago. And I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. I believe it was like in November of last year. I believe it was like the first video I did in November of last year. I was talking about Yael. Let me go. Yeah, Yael. Yeah. It was the very first video I did in let me see what date is on this. Oh, it's December. So, okay, so almost 1 month before Genevieve shows up with Cat riding in on Cat Williams to rip the veil. I was talking about Yael. Almost exactly 1 month before. And here we go. This she's always pictured with Yael and Azazel. And we know that's Yael and Azazel because of the whole thing with Abraham, okay? All right, let's keep going. Vita states that when a woman stole Genevieve's shoes, the woman was struck blind. When she arrived at her home, someone led her back to Genevieve, who healed her after she asked for her forgiveness. Her Vita also reports that Genevieve was able to discern that a young woman was lying about her chastity and that she restored vision, strength, and life to various people. Genevieve also healed a 9-year-old girl who lived in Lyon and healed by the laying on of her hands a young girl who had not been able to walk for 2 years. Genevieve resurrected a 4-year-old boy, the son of a woman she had healed of demon possession, who had fallen into a well and drowned. The boy was baptized on Easter and was subsequently called Celomerus because he had recovered his life in St. Genevieve's cell. Also during Easter, she healed a blind woman with prayers and with the sign of the cross. She healed a man from Mo who had a withered hand and arm. She prayed for him, touched his arm and joints, and made the sign of a cross over him. He was restored to health in 30 minutes. She released 12 people who lived in Paris of demon possession. She ordered them to go to the Basilica of Saint Denis and healed them after making the sign of the cross over each one of them. And it probably just wasn't the sign of the cross. There's exorcism prayers, you know what I mean? And they've been around for a long time. All right, Genevieve was asked to heal the wife of a tribune of paralysis, which was done with prayer and the sign of the cross. While in Troyes, many people were brought to her for healing, including a sick child who was healed after drinking water she had blessed, as well as a blind man whom the writer of her Vita reports had been punished for working on Sunday. Her Vita also reports that many people, including those suffering from demon possession, had been healed after tearing parts of her garments. This woman is like Jesus. She healed a city official who had been deaf for 4 years by touching his ears while making the sign of the cross over them. Her Vita describes miracles that happened in Orleans through her intercessions, including raising the daughter of a family's matriarch from the dead and healing a man who became ill because he refused to forgive his servant. Genevieve then visited Tours, braving many perils in the river Loire. I think it's the Louvre. Loire, I don't know. She was greeted there by a crowd of people possessed by demons, whom she healed with prayers and the sign of the cross. In the Basilica of St. Martin, some victims reported that Genevieve's fingers blazed up by one with celestial fire while healing them. She also healed 3 women of demon possession privately in their homes at the request of their husbands. Genevieve's Vita reports that in Tours, everyone honored her in the comings and goings. Her Vita also reports that near Genevieve's home, she was able to spot and remove a demon from opening a water vessel. The parents of a young boy brought their son, whom she healed of blindness, deafness, and paralysis, by making the sign of the cross and rubbing oil on him. Her prayers protected a harvest near Mo from a whirlwind during a rainstorm. Neither the reapers nor the crops touched by any water. Another time, while traveling by ship on the Seine, her prayers saved the ship. Her Vita makes the connection between this and the miracle of Christ calming the storm in the Gospels. Genevieve would often use oil to anoint and heal the sick. Her Vita reports that on one occasion, she sent for a vessel with oil that was supposed to have been blessed by a bishop, but after she prayed for an hour, that vessel was miraculously filled with oil and she was able to heal someone from demon possession. I mean, this article is so long, I just don't even want to keep reading because it's too much. This is probably one of the most well-documented saints and her healings. I mean, this is insane. We're not going to read the rest of this because it's just too much. This is totally insane. Totally insane. This woman is... Okay, let's look at the moon stick. Okay, so, again, like I said, let's go back to it real quick. That was a while ago. Looks like, to me, I got Sailor Moon. Now, I also was thinking Sailor Moon with the first crop circle, but the first one, I wasn't able to find something that was similar. But like I said, on this one, I saw this. I remember seeing these before with the moon going this way, and then like the moon. So I knew that I was, and especially this one in the middle because it has 3 circles and then a circle, and then you can see the things kind of crisscrossing it. So it's kind of like got the feel of the third one too, because it's just got that one big swoop around, which could be like from a tree branch. So I would love to get this carved onto a tree branch. Just the 12 circles, but we'll see what the Most High wants me to do with this information. So, all right, so let's look at the moon stick. It's one of the first weapons used by Sailor Moon. She primarily uses it to perform the moon healing escalation. The moon stick becomes more powerful after the silver crystal is attached to it. The previous owner of the moonstick was Queen Serenity. The moonstick appears in the manga, 90s anime, Crystal, and many Serum Moon. In the manga, the moonstick was similar in appearance to the one in the anime, but the crescent moon was light blue instead of gold. When the silver crystal appeared, it could be used in conjunction with the moonstick. In the final battle with Queen Metalia, the moonstick became a long staff. After Usagi got her new brooch, she used the moonstick to destroy Queen Metalia and revive the people of Earth. The moonstick vanished and was never mentioned again. So, in the manga, after this queen was gone, it was never mentioned again. So this is kind of important because here you have this being invoked, this imagery being invoked in a different form, not in a long staff form, but in a short stick form. Okay. In the 90s anime, it was a bright pink colored stick with a golden crescent moon shaped decoration at the bottom, a jewel and a crescent moon shape near the moon end, and a gold crescent moon on the top. The item was given to Sailor Moon by Luna in episode 25. Luna also stated that the moonstick signified Usagi's position as the leader of the Sailor Senshi. In a flashback in episode 44, Queen Serenity said it could only be used by a descendant of the Moon Kingdom. The item itself was a point of conflict in the first season, as the other Sailor Senshi, mainly Hino, doubted Usagi's responsibility to use it properly. In the same episode, Usagi was seen using it to smash open her piggy bank, though this may have been a gag. In episode 28, it fell out of Usagi's bag as she hurried to catch up with Naru and nearly landed in a river. Luna returned it to her and later warned her to be more careful. In episode 41, Usagi used moon healing escalation to restore brainwashed Endymion back to his normal self. While the attack itself did work, Mamoru was teleported away to the Dark Kingdom, prompting Queen Beryl to re-brainwash Mamoru more permanently. In episode 34, Silver Crystal appeared and attached itself to the stick. It was the final form of the Moonstick that Sailor Moon used to defeat Super Beryl in episode 46. However, unfortunately, Sailor Moon's use of her ultimate attack caused the ice pillar she was standing on to collapse, and the Moonstick was lost. After this battle, the Moonstick was never seen again. Sailor Moon used the attack once again to attempt to heal Endymion in episode 46. However, his brainwashing could not be reverted as he was infused with Queen Metalia's energy directly, and it showed no effect on him whatsoever. In episode 48, Sailor Moon attempted to use the Moonstick, forgetting that she had lost it. And later in episode 51, the item was replaced by the much stronger Cutie Moon Rod. In the 90s anime, the Moonstick had an alarm that went off whenever a rainbow crystal carrier came near it. The Moonstick also seemed to show sentience, rotating itself to block Kunzite's attempt to grab it. Furthermore, it guided the girls to land safely on the ruins of the Moon Kingdom and later guided them safely back to Earth in episode 44. Okay. So, let's take a look at something else I looked at on the other one. I think it was, moon healing escalation. Because I was like, well, what is that? And then we're going to read about St. Genevieve in Missouri. Okay, the moon healing escalation is a healing attack that Sailor Moon uses to heal people who have been affected by the Dark Kingdom's power. She used it in all versions of Sailor Moon, including the manga, the 90s anime, Crystal live action series, and many more, okay? Even in the video games. Okay, Sailor Moon uses the moon healing escalation with her moon stick to heal citizens of Tokyo after attacks. Come on, man. I can't even see what I'm looking at. After attacks, oh gosh, it moved the screen. After attacks from the Dark Kingdom, she does this a few times, including to help those Zoites brainwashed into searching for the silver crystal, and after Queen Metalia is defeated, to heal everyone on Earth, including to revive her fallen friends. In the anime, Sailor Moon held up her moonstick as it emanated a trail of glitter and mist, moved it in a wide circular motion, and drew the outline of the circle around her body. The Yuma then yelled refresh as lapses while the Yuma side of their host is destroyed. Once the silver crystal was revealed and attached to the moonstick, rays of light and balls of white energy emitted from it after the circle was formed. The sequence has different background music depending on whether the silver crystal was present. The attack was also used by Queen Serenity in episode 44 to cleanse the Dark Kingdom after Princess Serenity and Prince Endymion were killed. In the season finale, the attack was used against Super Barrel, although it had a different effect than usual. Here, it created a rainbow-colored protective dome, which shielded Usagi in her Princess Serenity form from Super Barrel's power of darkness. She was eventually able to combine this with Moon Prism power, destroying Barrel. So then it tells you the other ways that they use this. Which is interesting. Okay, so this is for healing. So you have this thing showing up right at a time when a healing needs to occur. I mean, I didn't pull up the astrology. We're not going to do that. Okay, let's look at, I'm going to wish I had, though. I know it. St. Genevieve, the town, okay? The population is less than 5,000 people. It was founded in 1735 by French-Canadian colonists and settlers from east of the river. It was the first organized European settlement west of the Mississippi and in present-day Missouri. Today is home to St. Genevieve National Historical Park, and Park Service is located there, okay? We're not going to read all of this. I'm just going to go down to... Let's read this part, okay? Let's read the beginning. Okay, this is founded in 1740 or 1735 is what it said. By Canadian settlers and migrants from settlements in the Illinois County just east of the Mississippi River. St. Genevieve is the oldest permanent European settlement in Missouri. It was named for St. Genevieve, who lived in the 5th century AD, the patron saint of Paris, the capital of France. While most residents were French-Canadian descent, many of the founding families had been in Illinois County for 2 or 3 generations. It is one of the oldest colonial settlements west of the Mississippi. This area is known as New France, Illinois County, or the Upper Louisiana Territory. Traditional accounts suggested a founding of 1735 or so, but one historian said it was about 750. The population east of the river needed more land as the soils in the older villages had become exhausted. That's because they didn't know how to use the soil. Improved relations with hostile Native Americans such as the Osage made settlement possible. Prior to the arrival of French-Canadian settlers, indigenous peoples of succeeding cultures had lived in the region for more than 1,000 years. The best known prior to the historic tribes were the Mississippian culture, which developed complex earthworks at sites such as Cahokia and had a broad cross-continental trading network along the Mississippi-Ohio River waterways from the south to near the Great Lakes. At the time of European settlement, however, no Indian tribe lived nearby on the West Bank. Jacques Nicolas Bellin's map of 1755, the first to show St. Genevieve in the Illinois country, showed Kaskaskia natives on the east side of the river, but no Indian village on the west side within 100 miles of St. Genevieve. Osage hunting and war parties did enter the area from the north and the west. The region had been relatively abandoned by 1500, likely due to environmental exhaustion. After the peak of the Mississippian civilization at Cahokia, the largest city of this culture. So they're talking about. Anyway, at the time of its founding by the ethnic French, Saint Genevieve was the last of a triad of the French Canadian settlements in this area of the mid-Mississippi Valley. About 5 miles northeast of Saint Genevieve on the east side of the river was Fort Deschartes in Illinois country. It stood as the official capital of the area. Kaskaskia, which became Illinois' first capital upon statehood, was located about 5 miles southeast. Prairie du Rocher and Cahokia, Illinois, independent settlement not attached to the ancient Mississippian site, were the other early local French colonial settlements on the east side of the river. So literally, this was, like I said in the other video, this was like French country, okay? Now, let's talk about this slavery stuff, because I thought that was really fascinating what happened. And of course, I suggest you go and take a look at this. It's very interesting. Lots of really interesting information. Wait a minute. Did I pass it? Maybe it wasn't that much information. Okay, here. The race riot. Okay, wait, let me go back up and read about the stampede. Okay, in 1852, there was a stampede, okay? September 4th, 1852, 8 enslaved men, including 5 from St. Genevieve, tried to escape enslavement by crossing the Mississippi River towards Sparta, Illinois, widely reputed as a haven for freedom seekers. They had been working in mines owned by the Val family of St. Genevieve, some because they were held or owned by the Vals. On 9 September, slaveholders put out $1,600 reward for the return of the men who were all recaptured, okay? And then they had a race riot in 1930. So by 1930, excuse me, can you do that later? By 1930, St. Genevieve had about 2,062 residents, 2,662 residents, 2,000. I said it right. Okay. Of whom 170 were African American and the remainder European American. Another 170 African Americans lived outside the town in the country closer to the work sites. The riot was a 4-day disturbance, long shrouded in secrecy, which vigilantes drove away most of the town's black residents, many of whom were recent arrivals recruited to work in the local lime kilns and stone quarries. Green, Kermer, and Holland in 1993 state, in 1930, state troopers were called twice to the little town of St. Genevieve to prevent a triple lynching. The entire black population, with the exception of 2 families, left town after the threatened lynchings. So, this was not even 10% of their populations that was Negro in the 1930s. So after these people left their homes, because think about how this works. They left their homes wherever they were, okay? So they forfeited their lands. They come to St. Genevieve, build new houses, because it's not like there were houses there. They built new houses, and then they got pissed and started a race riot and ran them out of the houses they just built. So not only did they not have their land back home, they didn't have their land there, and they were run back out to somewhere else. This is crazy. And this was a very small incident. I mean, at least nobody died. They didn't actually lynch anybody. But, I mean, the name of the town is St. Genevieve. As if she's going to allow that. You can't have a place named after a saint and think that you can just do whatever you want. So let's look at the picture of where this is located. And I'll tell you, I'll bet you anything, this is part of the area that's getting torn up. Oh, the Kansas City Chiefs. Okay, so Kansas City is in Missouri. It wasn't. It's not Kansas City, Kansas. It's Kansas City, Missouri. So Missouri is on the target as a result of what they did with that blood ritual to win the Super Bowl, to again try to buy themselves some more time. So you have them on the chopping block, and I had said a few weeks ago they're going to have to pay for what they did in fraudulently having this happen. And if I'm not mistaken, it was just a few days ago that they announced that uh when was that announced? Hold on, let me look. It was the Chiefs Super Bowl rings, which just, yeah, they just received their rings. Let's see what day this was. No. Let me see when they got their rings. Was it a day ago? Really? So the design 13th. What day was the 13th? The 13th was on Thursday. Okay, so they revealed their Super Bowl ring design on Thursday. Again, this is kind of like, it's too many little things to just be like, oh, I made it up somehow. You know what I mean? Like, it's just too many little things. So on June the 13th, the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl rings was revealed. So let's go over the timeline again. They call these they have this election with the EU, and Macron's party loses fantastically. Let me go back to looking at the crop circle. Okay, they have these EU elections. Macron's party loses. On Saturday, the 8th, this crop circle shows up. On the 9th, Macron dissolves the government. Then that's kind of like making the rounds. The 10th, 11th, 12th. The 13th, that's when the Chiefs announced their or not the Chiefs, but the NFL displays what the winning Super Bowl ring is going to look like. And then this actual crop circle is made public on the 14th. So again, you can't make this line of time up. Like, I didn't make this up. This is the actual timeline, starting with the 8th all the way to the 14th. And here it is, the 15th, and I'm making a video about it. Like, you can't make this stuff up. Like, this is literally as a direct response to their behavior. And again, if Saint Genevieve is being invoked as a result of what we asked to, again, let everybody pay for their crimes, number one. Number two, no pain and suffering and no unnecessary loss of life. The fact that this shows up in Genevieve, France, where you have a lot of crazy stuff going on in France right now. You have the Olympics coming, and it's all kind of like merging into something that they may have been planning, quote unquote, to happen during the Olympics. It's not going to work. The Olympics is going to go off smoothly. Saint Genevieve is been called upon to make, if she's overseeing, matter of fact, I would say she's been overseeing this whole year, because like I said, her feast day is January 3rd. That's when Cat Williams did his interview. So on her feast day, here's Cat Williams doing his thing, ripping the veil open on this whole planet, and nothing, they've not been able to do anything since then. And we got a preview in December with our discussion of Yael and Azazel. So this is, it seems to me, and since Genevieve she is very much given the powers of Yeshua. So we have someone who is able to operate in his power. So again, you can't make this stuff up. Like, there's no way possible that you can make any of this stuff up. I'm just glad that I can share it with you all and we have it saved for posterity. So when people look back on this time and say, how did you all make it? Hey, we had a lot of hints and we use every tool in the toolbox. Now, I know there's a lot of people who don't like the way that I do things. I really don't care because we got notice in December that Yael was coming and Azazel was coming. Big, heavy. And that's exactly what happened. These major energies have been unleashed onto the earth, and we have made the decision not to engage with the negative energies, which I think is the right thing to do. So I'm gonna end it here. I think I've said enough. This is a super long video, but it has to be put into the ley line so that these people can see we are the ones who are able to do this. They cannot do this type of interpretation because they don't work with the saints, and the saints don't work with them because they have done nothing but use and abuse these saints, and they're working with us obviously from 6, 7, 8 months ago, totally unknown to me. So I hope this meets everyone well. Of course, shalom, and we will see you in the next video.